G'day and welcome back to MCS. I'm back out here at the velodrome and we're going to be doing some more bike testing today. Over the last few decades we've seen quite a few improvements to our cycling equipment, whether it be electronic group sets, carbon frames or aerodynamics. The bike industry never fails to come up with all sorts of new and wonderful ways of taking our money, making us go much faster. I'm curious to find out just how much these innovations do actually improve on the performance of our road bike. So today I'll be comparing a modern carbon Di2 powered wonder bike versus a 25-year-old steel bike complete with down tube shifters. So the test we'll be running today, firstly we'll hit the track and we'll do a flat track test, a 10-minute test at consistent power, and after that we'll head back out to the Dandenong Ranges and we'll put both these bikes to the test up the 1 in 20. Let's have a look at these bikes in a little bit more detail, shall we? So over here on my left we can see the carbon bike. It's a 2014 Giant TCR Advanced SL0, complete with Dura-Ace Di2 90/50 group set and a Yolio C60 carbon wheel set. So pretty much the same old boring crap that we're all riding, right? What you're probably more interested in is that baby over there. Well, that's my 1989 Repco Victory Tri-A. Let's have a look at this bike a bit more closely, shall we? Now, if you're not familiar with the Repco bicycle company, Repco is a true blue Aussie Australian bike brand from the good old days. Back when Sir Jack Brabham was winning world titles in his Repco Brabham V8, we used to manufacture lots of cool things in Australia, and Repco is a little bit like Bianchi for us Aussies. A lot of you might be laughing and saying, well, if you're testing a steel bike, surely you should be testing something like maybe a Colnago or you know, something made out of Reynolds 531. Well, don't kid yourselves, people. This Repco is a real deal vintage proper steel bike. It might say Repco on the badge, but this bike is actually was completely manufactured by the Japanese Kawamura Cycle Corporation. Funnily enough, the Repco Victory Tri-A, if you're from the United States, you'd probably know it as the Nishiki Tri-A, and I believe it was also sold as a Norco Tri-A in some countries as well. Now, as I mentioned, it's actually a complete Japanese bike. It's Japanese steel, and on this particular bike, it's Tongay Infinity, which, if you're not familiar with that, it's a chromoly or 4130 steel. So it's actually a good quality Japanese steel frame bike. And as we all know, Japanese steel, it cuts deep. Let's talk a little bit about the gearing. So up front, we've got the mighty Sugino crankset with a 40-52 chainring. So that's how they rocked the compact in those days. And out on the back, it's a freewheel, and there's 6 gears available, and it's a 14-24. So not many gears there either. And operating those gears, we have the trusty down tube shifters. And this bike actually has Shimano SIS indexed gears. It's probably Shimano's very first foray into indexed gear. So it's not that bad, it shifts quite nicely. And setting these gears is really easy. You can use a tape measure. What else have we got? On the back, the rear mech, it's a Shimano 600 tricolor. So that's basically Ultegra before they invented Ultegra. A lot of the old timers out there might notice a couple of modern concessions on this bike. So brake wise, I've got a set of modern Tektro dual pivot calipers because I value my teeth. And for rubber, up front, it's a GP 4000. And on the back, it's a gator skin. That's just how it is. Now, let's get both these bikes on the scales of truth and let's see what they both weigh in at. Okay, that's pretty much bang on 10 kilos there for the steel Repco. Now, let's see what the new kid on the block from Taiwan weighs in at. Okay, that's 7.2 kilos. Holy smokes. It's going to be fun riding that Repco up that hill, I tell ya. Okay, that's the first test on the 1989 Repco Victory Tri-A. So I averaged, for the 10-minute test there on the steel bike, I averaged 275 watts. So we'll quickly just swap the power meters over and quick calibration, and we'll head back out on the track for the test on the Carbon Di2 NASA bike. Okay, that's the second test on the Giant TCR Carbon Wonder Bike done. I managed to hold slightly within about a watt to the steel bike. I think I averaged 274 watts. It's felt easier, funnily enough. Well, not that it felt easier, but it felt like it was easier to keep a smoother power on the carbon bike than it did with the steel bike. It could just be my head, but that's definitely something I noticed. Another thing is, because it's so windy today, I did feel like I was getting blown around a lot more on the carbon bike. We'll, you know the drill now, we'll get all of this packed up into the car and we'll head over to the Dandenong Ranges and we'll see what the Repco can do up the 1 in 20. Okay, so we're back out here at the Dandenong Ranges for the second part of our bike test, where we will find out what 25 years of the bike industry's improvement and evolution can do for the climbing capabilities of our bike. So for the second test, we'll be climbing up the Melbourne's 1 in 20 Strava Segment. It's a 6.5 kilometre climb with an average gradient of about, say, 4%. First out of the boot was the Giant TCR, so young, eager thing that she is. So first up, we'll be hitting the climb in the Giant TCR NASA Carbon Wonder Bike. That's the first climb done in the TCR Carbon Wonder Bike. Managed to average 275 watts. So now we'll just have to head back down and get out the made in Australia Japanese samurai sword of death and see what the Repco steel bike can do up the 1 in 20. Okay, so now it's the Repco's turn to head up the climb. I'll see if I can put on my best Greg LeMond impersonation. Anyway, time for me to hit the climb like it's 1989. Okay, so I just finished the climb in the Repco vintage steel bike. I'm not really sure if I felt like Greg LeMond. I think it was more like Claudio Capucci. Anyway, power wise, I think I averaged about 2 or 3 watts more than the TCR, but we'll see what the results are for the Strava segment when we get back home. Okay, so I've got all the results from our testing today, and let's get stuck straight into the results. So for the first test out on the velodrome, the Repco vintage steel bike, I averaged, for the 10-minute test, I averaged 275 watts for an average speed of 36.1 kilometers an hour. For the modern carbon wonder bike, the Giant TCR, the average power was 274 watts, so a really good close number there. And drum roll, the average speed was 37.8 kilometers an hour. So flat, out on the flat, as you can see, there is a little bit of an advantage to the modern carbon bike. Now on to the results for the second test, the climbing test out on the 1 in 20 Strava segment. For the vintage steel bike for the Repco, the average power was 276 watts and the segment average speed was 20.3 kilometers an hour. Segment time was 19 minutes and 22 seconds. Now on to the Giant TCR Advanced SL0 with Dura-Ace Di2 and carbon wheels and all sorts of good bits on it. The segment details for that bike were the average power 273 watts, so pretty close on the money there. The average speed 21.3 kilometers an hour. And the segment time was 18 minutes and 21 seconds. So there you have it, 25 years of cycling evolution, and that's what it's come down to. I mean, it's very interesting to see that the results really aren't that different, but I think in reality, the differences between the two bikes are significantly, are a little bit greater than that. Now, you don't really ride around at a consistent speed and a consistent power. Really, all that is a test of a bike's weight, the rolling resistance, and to some degree, aerodynamics. So to really, where the carbon bike really shines is in the real world situations, where you're accelerating, where you're changing gears, when you have to, in braking. That's where the modern carbon bike with an 11-speed group set and the shifters more conveniently located up on the brake hoods makes a big difference. That's where I think the biggest differences are. With the steel bike, 6 gears, it's not that bad. The main thing is the accessibility of the gears is not quite there. Because of the down tube shifters, you tend to just keep it in the gear you've got. You don't tend to change gears at the most optimum time. Because the steps in the gears are bigger, sometimes you tend to just stomp it in the gear that you've got. So it's not the most efficient bike. Also, the gear changes themselves, particularly when you're shifting into the big ring, you tend to lose a little bit of momentum. In real world riding situations, what I've found is the steel bike with the down tube shifters is much more fatiguing to ride. The modern carbon bike with the easy gears, your gear changes are crisper, faster, you change gears at the right time, so you're riding much more efficiently. When it comes to accelerating, the weight of the bike helps as well. So that's what I've found from riding these bikes out in the real world. However, you know, the numbers from today are very interesting, and as you can see, if you're just riding along, as they say, there really is not that much in it. Now, there's one thing that I have to say, the steel bike is a lot of fun. It's nice and bright and fun to ride, and just like driving an old car, it might not be that fast, but it's satisfying to get out there and ride it sometimes. Shifting the gears on the down tube, it can be a lot of fun, you know? And that's what cycling at the end of the day is all about. You can, you know, put on your stupid cycling kit, jump on your old steel bike and go on out and have some fun. And as you see from the numbers today, there really is not that much in it. Okay, you're gonna have to put out a few more watts to keep up with your mates on their fancy bikes. But hey, that'll just give you all the more bragging rights at the coffee shop. Anyway, that's all for today. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave your own advice and tips down in the comments below. I love reading all your comments. And if you've enjoyed the video, give it a big thumbs up, and I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel. Anyway, take care and see you next time.